Hello, good morning. It is 7 o'clock. You're watching Mornings on Sky News with me, Matt Barbet. Breaking news, we got him. America declares they've rescued their fighter pilot who was shot down inside Iran. President Trump says the operation was one of the most daring in military history, he thinks, confirming the crew member is injured but is also okay. Houston, we have a small problem. The Artemis 2 crew report issues with the craft's toilets as they continue their mission to the moon. Also this morning, we'll look at today's papers with political journalist Zoe Grunewald and The Sun's deputy political editor Ryan Sabin. Plus, cancelled flights and closed roads. Storm Dave batters parts of the UK, but the worst has passed. Good morning. Starting with our breaking news this morning, an American pilot who was shot down inside Iran has now been rescued by his own side. The president declaring we got him, saying US forces pulled off, in his opinion, one of the most daring operations in history. The airman was found in mountainous country after his fighter jet was downed over southern Iran on Friday. The Iranian regime had reportedly offered a $60,000 reward for the pilot's capture. Earlier, I spoke with our US correspondent, James Matthews.
There were media reports just before midnight local time, Matt, and confirmed by the US president, as is the way when a big story breaks. President Trump himself confirming the detail, shed some light on the experience of this officer, a colonel, we are told. He was behind enemy lines, according to Donald Trump, in the treacherous mountains of Iran, being hunted down by our enemies, says the president in this Truth Social post. He says that the Iranians were getting closer and closer. So it was clearly a race against time and a race against the Iranians to get to their man, Matt. He was found safe and sound, according to the president, does have some injuries, but he will be fine. He will be fine. The president says he was never truly alone because his commander-in-chief, Secretary of War, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and fellow warfighters were monitoring his location 24 hours a day. So that would appear to indicate that the Americans knew where this individual was. It was merely a question of getting to him and getting to him before the Iranians. Aircraft were involved. Special forces will have been involved. And according to the president, all have been safely all are safely away from Iran. So clearly a source of pride for the president. Indeed, he calls this a moment when that all Americans, Republican, Democrat, and everybody else should be proud of it, he says, and united around it. We truly have the best, most professional and lethal military in the history of the world. So the president clearly sees political capital in this. But yes, it's an occasion of relief and success for the US military. But the questions will not be far. Questions about why this happened in the first place, when we were told by the president himself that America enjoyed air superiority, air dominance, and that the Iranians didn't have effectiveness when it came to anti-aircraft fire. But, you know, for this moment, clearly it's what, like I say, all the Americans wanted to hear, and it's great news that the pilot is safe and sound. But again, the questions about this conflict generally, they don't necessarily go away.
Our military analyst Sean Bell is here, former pilot, of course, and someone who's ejected from an aircraft as well, Sean. Let's start there, because going from that position of power in a place where the US has got air supremacy to suddenly being on the ground, and in the case of this person who's now been rescued, injured as well, we learn, is a huge shock to the system, and I imagine terrifying as well.
Yeah, I mean, we heard yesterday, didn't we, from John Peters, who back in the Gulf, and he said, you're strapped into a multi-million-pound aeroplane, air-conditioned, and you're insulated from it all, and suddenly you're a pink body in the desert. And I think certainly for the downed aircrew, they will have been shot down, it appears. And although that might sound romantic, you see the Top Gun type thing. The trouble is most missiles hit the back end of the aeroplane. The back end of the aeroplane is how you control the aeroplane.
Yeah.
And therefore, it can often just end up tumbling through the air, which can be, A, disorientating, and B, quite damaging. So not only might you've sustained that, then you've ejected and you've had to go through the whole rigmarole of that. Then you find yourself on the ground. Normally, there's blood everywhere because your face gets caught up with the bits and bobs that are going on around you.
Yeah.
And as you say, and then you're feeling, have I broken anything? Have I injured? And of course, a lot of people do injure their back during that process.
Donald Trump mentions in his Truth Social post about a second rescue. We think that's for the other person who was in the same aircraft, and we do believe they're both men as well, by the way. What do we understand about this latest rescue? Because injuries, many planes involved in trying to find this US colonel in the Air Force. And any suggestion that they had to engage the Iranian enemy in the process?
Yeah, well, I'm taking this sort of in order. The first one is that we didn't really hear anything from the US administration about the first rescue operation, and almost certainly because until they concluded the second one, because these rescue operations, it isn't just about the individual on the ground, it's around potentially dozens of other aircraft, crew that could... So the situation can rapidly get worse. That's the point, if another aircraft's down. So they've kept quiet until the fact they've got the 2 downed aircrew out and everybody else is safely back home. So I think they're referring to that original, the rescue operation. As it is for the guy there, I mean, it'd be fascinating to hear all the details as they start to come out, because there will have been, they've talked about an engagement, because both the Iranians were trying to get hold of this individual. So it does sound as if they probably had a firefight as well. And the injuries for the individuals concerned, as you say, they may well have been that the aircrew on the ground was injured. I do not envy the aircrew on the ground. Escape and evasion, if you have damaged your back in injection or other things, initially he won't be feeling the pain. After a few hours, as the dawning realisation, that will be very painful for him.
Sean, really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much indeed. Joining me now is former senior advisor at the US Department of State and the White House National Security Council, Nagar Ankar. Nagar, good to see you again. Your reaction to this, because it could have gone so wrong, but Donald Trump's making it sound like it went so right.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Look, it is very good news. I mean, we did avert a casualty in enemy territory. We avoided a U.S. member being captured by the enemy, becoming a prisoner of war. And most definitely, they would have been paraded around for propaganda purposes by the Iranians. And so recovering a U.S. service member, or members in this case, behind enemy lines is a moral imperative by the United States, and it's a tactical success. So just to lay that out, but it's not necessarily a turning point in the war's outcome and strategic direction, because if anything, I feel like this is more like a warning label. The U.S. obviously has, up until now, shown U.S. air superiority, dominance, but in this case, Iran was able to show that it could take down a U.S. aircraft. So that was quite a puncture into that thought process. Obviously, the rescue overnight on Easter Sunday closes off a propaganda nightmare that we would have endured by the Iranians, but also it was important for the MAGA base, who is quite concerned about U.S. presence in this conflict and the continuity of this conflict. So again, U.S. service members being rescued is quite important.
It certainly is. And what do you make, though, of the tone of Donald Trump's post to Truth Social? Look, we're used to him using superlatives, saying this is the best ever and the greatest thing and the most audacious and that kind of thing. But do you think his supporters, maybe that MAGA base, will read between the lines and think this was a very close call, and that how might that influence their view of the conflict?
No, that's a very good point. I think, again, it was quite an important and impressive extraction out of Iran. And I do think as the details start coming out of how the extraction occurred, it will be something that many will be quite impressed by in terms of all the various levels, the details, the different agencies who were involved, as much as that can be shared with the public. But again, there's a concern of not wanting to be in a forever war. It does start begging the question, once we get past a lot of the sort of the Hollywood antics of what an operation like this sort of looked like, there's a concern of no more forever wars. And where we are in this conflict with Iran is we're in, again, we continue to be in quite a critical state where the president has sent mixed messaging, right? There's an element where he says he's going to send Iran back to the Stone Ages, which means continuous bombings of critical infrastructure. On the other end, we have this economic crisis and the Strait of Hormuz being impacted. And what does that mean? At the end of the day, voters do think about their pocketbooks. And so there will be a question of how much longer do we have to be in this conflict until the president can essentially declare success.
You touched upon something there with the sort of the Hollywood approach to this. We've seen it on the official White House social media channels, taking all those tropes and using AI to turn things into what looks like a trailer for a Hollywood movie. I mean, of course, you've got plenty in America who've got experience of conflict. They don't like this kind of thing. But will others be swayed by that? I mean, if it had gone the other way, Iran would have made the most of the propaganda opportunity. Having gone this way, do you think the US administration is going to make the most of what they perceive as a success?
They absolutely will. Again, I think President Trump and his administration understand their base, understand their voters, and will be presenting those sorts of images. The images that you were referring to were the special operations in Venezuela and some of the successes there. So undoubtedly, you will have, again, quite a bit of video footage showing that kind of success. It is something that many in the American public will be appreciating. As you said, there's also the other half of the American public who have lived through these conflicts, who will not be appreciating these sorts of video footage, this sort of gamifying this kind of outcome. But again, this is where we are in terms of U.S. Voters and the U.S. audience. I think at the end of the day, what push comes to shove, they're going to be worried about prices, though, and I think that will be quite a bit of a determining factor for the president. What does it mean in terms of oil prices? What does it mean in terms of food, supply chains, et cetera? And so we'll have to see what happens over the next few days and weeks.
I suspect that fear of prices is the thread that's running through a lot of countries right now in response to this conflict. And Nagar, I really appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Let's head to Jerusalem now. Sky's Diana Magne is there for us this morning. Diana, I wonder how this is starting to play out there and also what other stories are coming your way across the region.
Well, Matt, I think it's important to look at some of the details, and just listening to what you were talking about just then. In Donald Trump's Truth Social post, he says, we got away with this scot-free, basically. But we're now hearing from Iranian state media that a C-130 was shot down as part of that search and rescue process. Now, a C-130 transport or refueling planes, they are the big ones that we saw on video refueling 2 black helicopters on Friday, in the first day of the search. This is obviously coming from Iranian state media, quoting a police commander in the Isfahan region, saying that they'd shot down a C-130. Now, there are 3 or 4 crew members at least on those kinds of planes. Whether that is or is not the case, we don't know. We can only take Iranian state media's word for it. But that is something that we will have to see whether it is confirmed. But I think Donald Trump never lets the truth get in the way of a good Truth Social post. And I read further down in that saying this is the first time in military history that the United States has rescued 2 air pilots from enemy territory. Now, I was in Benghazi in 2011, or off the coast of it anyway, when off the USS Kearsarge, a US warship that's in this region at the moment, they sent 2 Ospreys to rescue 2 airmen downed in eastern Libya. And one of them was rescued immediately, and one of them was rescued shortly after. So I think Donald Trump's military memory is not as long as those in military service. So we shall have to see. You know, he said this was a very dangerous operation. They certainly have got those 2 airmen back. It remains to be seen whether more have been taken or fallen into enemy territory in the process. We do not yet know. As far as other developments go, the IDF say that they have struck 120 military targets in central and western Iran over the last 24 hours, again targeting terror infrastructure. Yesterday, we know that they were targeting petrochemical centre at the top of the Gulf in the southwest of Iran. That's extremely important to Iran's economy. We know now from Iranian state media that 5 people were killed in those attacks. They also hit the Bushehr nuclear plant for a 4th time. And Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday that 70% of Iran's steel industry had been impacted in strikes. And I think what you see there is that they are picking off important components of Iran's industrial complex. Petrochemicals is, you know, secondary in importance to oil and gas, but very, very important. Steel, another pillar of the Iranian economy. So as Iran holds the global economy really in its crosshairs with this constraints on the Strait of Hormuz, you have the US and Israel picking away at the other industrial pillars of its economy. I think another important development to bring you here in Israel, Matt, is that last night we saw quite significant protests across the country, especially in Tel Aviv, against this war with Iran. They were broken down by police because under home front command rules you are not allowed more than 50 people in a gathering, and they had been given permission, at least in Tel Aviv, just for 1,000, and there were more than that. So the protest was broken up. But I think it does show you that people are beginning to turn away from, you know, the whole sense of this war as it drags on into its 6th week. At the beginning, you had pretty much universal, you know, 80% support for the war against Iran amongst Jewish Israelis. And that is because Iran has posed an existential threat to this country for such a long time. It is something that Benjamin Netanyahu, for 40 years now, has been talking about trying to counter. But as it drags on and it becomes more and more clear that getting rid of the regime is not that easy, and that despite the fact that they have been bombarded for 5 or 6 weeks, they still have launchers, they still have ballistic missiles, they are still sending them over to Israel, causing damage here and across the region. That is beginning to turn, and you've seen in opinion polls the support for this war dropping from 80% to closer to 70%, and I think that you will see more protests as the weeks continue, Matt.
Diana, really appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. That's Diana Magna, who's in Jerusalem for us this weekend. Well, I wonder how opinion polls are faring elsewhere in the world, because the broader impact of the war is still causing many issues. Fuel shortages in particular are being hardest felt across Southeast Asia and the Asia Pacific. In Australia, hundreds of petrol stations there have run dry. So a good time to speak to our correspondent, Nicole Johnston, who joins me now. Nicole, people in Europe, people in Britain will be looking at this and wondering if it's a portent of things to come here.
Well, look, the issue is Australia does have enough petrol, enough diesel, enough jet fuel at this stage. The problem is, though, people just don't believe it. There's no certainty about the future. So people are hoarding petrol. And that's been going on for the last couple of weeks now at petrol stations across the country. Even though the government has told people not to do it, there are people turning up and filling up car after car. They're filling up small drums worth of petrol. And that's why we're starting to see hundreds of these regional petrol stations running out of fuel. Now, it's the long weekend here, just as it is in the UK, a time of year when people are normally in their cars, they're on the roads, they're heading out to the countryside, to coastal areas to visit family. But some of the surveys that have been done is that half of Australians have decided that they'll stay home. They're too worried about the global uncertainty, the economic crisis, about whether they could even get stuck in a remote country area and find that they can't get any fuel. Now, the government, of course, is trying to tell people, stay calm, we've got it under control. But the issue is no one really believes them. It sounds good on paper, 30 days worth of petrol, 40 days worth of diesel, but everyone knows that a real crunch time is coming in mid-April, end of April and into early May, when those last ships out of the Gulf make it to Asia and from Asia to Australia. And while the government says, look, we've got ships on the way, we don't think we're going to run out, clearly no one is quite confident enough of that yet. And despite all of these sort of urgings by the government that people should not go and sort of run petrol stations dry, people are essentially doing it.
Serious stuff, Nicole, but I tell you what, if people do have to run out of fuel, there'll be worse places to get stranded than the Narooma beach where you are. It looks absolutely lovely there right now, I have to say. It's
pretty nice. Bit grey, though, but we'll take it.
Yeah, I'm sure the surf's good nonetheless. Nicole, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, the Artemis 2 moon mission experiences a minor malfunction, I'm afraid to say, with its toilet. We'll bring you the sanitised details next.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Over the next 45 days, an estimate 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. We take you to the heart of the story in the largest democracy in the world.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
Those vivid colours of summer have faded now, but the trauma for everyone who witnessed what happened here hasn't gone away.
Devastation. We lost 3 of them.
Ruda Cabana's guilty pleas mean they won't have to relive what they saw in court, but everyone here tells you they'll carry it for the rest of their lives. You see people running red lights time after time after time. This is an offence that sometimes has the most awful of consequences.
When you speed through a pedestrian crossing, there is a risk that you could batter somebody to death. She filled our lives with light. She was innocent, she was happy.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
He had a beautiful death. He fell asleep in my arms. This is about a dying person's choice to die peacefully when they want to, on their terms.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
we're trying to see as much as we can.
Back to space now, where the astronauts aboard Artemis 2's Orion capsule are expected to reach their destination, the far side of the moon, of course, as soon as tomorrow. They spent the early hours of this morning testing the manual piloting function of their spacecraft, taking turns to check its performance. It is designed to fly autonomously, but the test aims to ensure it can be manoeuvred manually if they need to do that. Now, while the mission has mostly been going smoothly, there's been a slight issue. The onboard toilet has continued to experience minor malfunctions. It's a bit like travelling on the train across Britain, isn't it? Engineers suspect ice, though, in this instance, may be blocking the line, preventing some waste from the so-called lunar loo from flushing out.
During the night, we tried to vent the wastewater tank that's attached to the toilet. We had problems with that due to a suspected blockage, we think probably due to ice. So we directed the crew overnight to use their collapsible contingency urine devices, just like they did on flight day 1.
Next, we spend a lot of time, quite rightly, talking about the possible risks and threats and the benefits of AI. But in areas like medical advancements, it's hard to deny it's doing quite a bit of good. The leaps in tech could improve the lives of 2 million blind and partially sighted Britons, with new British-designed AI smart glasses able to help with tasks like navigating and reading. Fascinating stuff. To find out more, I'm joined now by design lead Robin Spinks and Associate Professor in Computer Science, Dr. Suraj Ajit. It is great to see you both. Suraj, first and foremost, I mean, I mentioned there, a lot of people are concerned about the threat, the risks of AI, but in this instance, it sounds like it's doing, well, a lot of good, almost to miraculous levels for people who have partial sight or blindness.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is primarily for a very good cause to help blind and partially sighted people with navigation, information access, and obstacle detection and communication and all these features. I think it's developed with a very good cause in mind. So I think it's really impressive. I mean, I saw a live demo of the glasses last week. I was quite impressed with the features it has. It doesn't really require a smartphone. So some of the other smart glasses, you need to have a smartphone with you to enable some of the features. But this works independent of a smartphone.
And Robin, how has it been tried out? And how have the participants, I'm guessing, in the trials responded to these glasses?
So we've seen a huge benefit from smart glasses, really as an assistive technology, helping blind and partially sighted people. And if you imagine just for a moment that 250 people every day are told, I'm really sorry, there's nothing further can be done for your sight, you're going to lose your sight. Actually, having an assistive device to help you with the kind of tasks like navigating and reading and potentially even identifying objects is really powerful. So we're excited to see where this goes. And this whole space is turning out to be something which can deliver more independence and more confidence for individuals.
And especially, Robin, people with the most profound blindness, can it help them, or do people need to have some sort of sight for the benefit to work?
Well, we're seeing AI delivering benefits for people with really any level of visual impairment. So if it's, for example, reading labels, so maybe you're visiting an exhibition and you want to read the information boards, it'd be possible for AI to do that without someone having useful vision. And it, of course, always develops or requires confidence, and it requires skills and understanding of how to use devices. Once people have that, that actually enables them to benefit from using these devices in lots of different contexts. And we're really, of course, just at the start of seeing the kind of revolution, if you like, of smart glasses and enabling people to become more independent.
Yeah, and the coincidence is not lost on me that the three of us are all wearing old-fashioned glasses. I'm assuming we've all got some sort of a prescription, which does beg the question, Suraj, whether these kind of advancements could mean we get rid of these kind of things, or those of us who are wearing specs like we all are now could also benefit from these advancements with AI.
Yeah, I mean, there are various types of smart glasses out there. So there are some glasses which can benefit people like us with, it offers a magnified image of, some of the things like you call it augmented reality, where you can see a completely magnified image in a small screen on your glasses. But these, the ones you talked about, are specifically for blind people because it has this, they have a patented obstacle detection technique, which basically you have a couple of buttons, and once you press those buttons, if there are any obstacles in front of you, you get beeps, and you can also talk to the glasses. So you can describe the surroundings around you, you can ask follow-up questions, things like that, yeah.
Just to finish off, Robin, I also wonder what it means for the future of guide dogs, because they help a lot of people with partial sight to navigate the world. Does it mean that they may be redundant?
I think the key consideration here really is choice. So for some people, a guide dog will be a relevant and a great mobility aid. For other people, it won't be. So really what we want to do is make sure that people have choice in the kind of intervention that will help them to get around, whether that's a human guide, a guide dog, smart glasses, perhaps a smart cane, maybe it's some other kind of technology. It's all about choice and enabling people to develop the skills and use the tools for modern living to enable them to be as independent as possible.
Robin, Suraj, it's great to have you both on. Really interesting to talk about this, and look forward to hearing how it develops for people with those challenges further on. Thank you both.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Time now to take a look at the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, Storm Dave has passed through, and high pressure building in its wake is going to bring more settled conditions to end the bank holiday weekend. I'm sure you're glad to hear. Also, an increase in temperatures is expected early in the week as well. For now, though, it is pretty chilly and breezy still, with a mixture of sunny spells and blustery showers. They'll be heaviest and most frequent through central and northern parts of the UK, where they may merge to give some longer spells of rain or snow. The odd rumble of thunder can't be ruled out. The showers will spread eastwards through the day, with drier conditions following in from the west.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Coming up in a moment, Paul is back with the sport and, well, you have to say, perhaps unexpected celebrations for Southampton after they shocked Arsenal, the Premier League leaders, to dump them out of the FA Cup and get into the semi-finals themselves. All the goals coming up from St Mary's.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Some breaking news to bring you now, coming from Iranian state media. Now, they're claiming that they have shot down a US plane, a C-130, like a Hercules, a support plane. They say it was destroyed by the fire of their police commando unit. They also say that local sources report the plane refueling in their translated words, the evil invaders to the sacred land of the homeland, and was shot down in the southern region of Isfahan. So Iranian state media saying that they have shot down a US C-130 support aircraft. OK, it is time to talk sport now. Paul is back with me. And listen, Paul, a bit of a view here. A lot of people frustrated with the quality of the competition in the Premier League this season. Arsenal are leading, but it hasn't been the most exciting league. The FA Cup, though, it's come into its own. It really has been the romance of the Cup again this season.
It has been good to see. You think back to the previous rounds, Macclesfield getting that victory against Crystal Palace, Port Vale's run up until they were stopped yesterday against Chelsea, and of course Southampton beating Arsenal as recently as yesterday. It has kind of, we've felt that excitement of the Cup, and you know, we've got a situation now that, you know, come the semi-final draw, Southampton are going to be in there with a West Ham or a Leeds. Yeah. OK, Manchester City are still there, Chelsea are still there, but yeah, for West Ham, Leeds, for Southampton, they don't often have these kind of successes at Cup competitions. You know, there's a real chance to believe there.
And I think the supporters of those clubs that would feel like they're going for the Premier League title or the Champions League places, if they're anything like me, they probably sneakily quite like the fact that there are other clubs who can get some silverware here, Palace being the prime example.
Yeah, and we're seeing that in European competition as well over the last couple of seasons. Different clubs in the European competition.
Bodo Glimt spring to mind.
Bodo Glimt. I mean, perfect example in the Champions League. They've been flying up until that second leg, finally knocked out. But you know, there's a great story around Bodo Glimt. One of their strikers was about to join Norwich in January in the Championship, and because of they went on this run, he decided to stay put, and he went on to score against Manchester City, Atletico Madrid. So it's, you know, some really good stories about, and some good underdog stories.
Yes.
But yeah, let's maybe catch up on a little bit more of that Southampton victory against Arsenal yesterday.
Boys, first of all, just talk me through this photo and what's going on here.
I think it was a five-a-side tournament, from what I can remember.
To be honest, we did win a lot. So.
I know. Yeah.
It's weird that you've actually found a picture with all us three in it.
Explain to me when you guys all first met and who you first played for. Like, what's the team there? What's the story behind that?
I came to Interwood FC, right? That's where we met.
When did you join, Charles?
So I joined
I know
probably about under 11s, under 12s.
These are what, I promise you, these are the moments that you remember.
These are the foundations of what built our career. And like we say, like you train in the academies, but then you go, not only that, but you play on rubbish pitches, but you get used to it, and then you go to your academies and you appreciate it a lot more. And like we say, I think the kids nowadays don't get to see both sides.
We were winning, we were losing. Like you see kids now, we speak about academies, they don't know what winning is. Where we were then growing up, we were going to, like you say, places, Broadwater Farm, going all over them, and we were winning most of the time. So you get that like winning mentality. We knew what it was to win at 10, 11. Whereas you get into academies now, they don't play competitions or for points until they're 18. So from 10 to 16, they're just playing friendlies, and there's nothing on it. You see it now, kids, when they come off the pitch, they don't care if they've won or lost.
And I do say it to the young boys, like, man, when you understand winning and losing, and when it really means something, like, I hated losing more than I liked winning, and I just couldn't take it. We was
crying.
Sore losers, man, sore losers.
You know, Trevor was, like we spoke about, it was all of our dad's friends, and he just made that club feel like a family. We went there and we had fun. Like, he set the foundations for that club.
Him and his brother Danny, you know, Danny's training, and what I loved about Danny going there on a Saturday's training was you had 12-year-olds training with 17-year-olds. Yeah. And they're all together, there was no bias, there was no anything, and the whole point was, if you're good enough, you're going to do it and you're going to show. And everyone used to do the same thing. I remember the press-ups around in a circle, doing that. If someone fouled, you had to start again. All them kind of things, I think, was such a basis, and there's them little details that you probably won't think of, and we all got thrown together. But it made the 12-year-olds better, because they're playing, they have to be quicker, they have to be stronger, they have to be quicker in their minds in terms of how they pass and shoot and stuff like that. And with the 17-year-olds is how you have to show the youngsters how good you are. And I thought that the training was really good.
It definitely exposed me and made me very comfortable with now, as you guys will know, and you'll find it now with players coming into your teams as well. The adaptation to coming into that changing room, because I was used to, we was like 9, 10, 11 playing with, like you're saying, 16, 17-year-olds. And I could just, it wasn't no different, like if he was 11 or 12, it was an easy adaptation. But now where the young ones are not so exposed to all that grassroots, not playing against bigger boys or boys from different types of areas, right? When they do start now come into those environments, again, it's got a lot to do with the mental side now, the social side. Not even if they have the ability, they don't know how to adapt in there, they don't know how to move into the changing rooms. It's all daunting, it's all different, you understand? So what Trevor was able to do, which he really did well, was
bring the whole club together.
Bring everybody together, you understand?
Bring everyone together.
Facilitate so many different types of people coming from so many different situations.
Until year 6, you had to make a choice or not.
Was it year 7? I think.
Yeah,
year 7.
Year 7. I think I was about 13, 12,
13. So like year 7,
13,
year 8.
Yeah.
Them 2 years before having to choose was just like the best, and that's what made you go into it. And then for me, I spent 5 years at Arsenal. We left at the same time, didn't we?
No, I left the year before you.
Yeah. And then I spent 5 years at Arsenal.
When did you?
I went 13. I went to Tottenham at 13, under 13, yeah. I went left. I was on trial for about 6 weeks, I think, but obviously doing both, and then end up getting signed under 13.
But say we left, I was still coming back, playing every tournament, playing every game.
Yeah, I think we all were at some stage.
Yeah, we all were coming back. So if we didn't have a game on a Saturday, you knew that you was playing for Fleetwood, and that was. That wasn't even pushed from our parents, that was pushed from us, because that's how we speak about the culture of the club. That's what the club meant to us.
That's where you get, like, I felt, honestly, don't get me wrong, you playing with when you go to the academy, you're playing with better players that the system think was better, right? That the system they believe is better, like better technical ability, etc. But to actually compete, this is where we got our competitive stuff from. I promise you, because I wasn't having these two try and beat me. There's no way, because they're my friends, right? So it becomes a little bit more personal. So when we came back to here, I wanted to show them. Because if they ain't seen me for 3-4 weeks, like, I've still got your number, or you've got mine, whatever it might be. So this is where we got the competitiveness from.
It is, yeah. The feeling of winning was such a high that it just consumed you, and you just want more of it and more of it and more of it, and that's what you take.
Paul, thank you very much indeed. I just had to tune out slightly when you talk about that terrible loss by Liverpool against Man City yesterday. Anyway, we move on. After the break, I'll be discussing the top stories in the papers. Zoe and Ryan will be back in the studio.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Over the next 45 days, an estimate 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. We take you to the heart of the story in the largest democracy in the world.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
Those vivid colours of summer have faded now, but the trauma for everyone who witnessed what happened here hasn't gone away.
Devastation. We lost 3 of them.
Ruda Cabana's guilty pleas mean they won't have to relive what they saw in court, but everyone here tells you they'll carry it for the rest of their lives. You see people running red lights time after time after time. This is an offence that sometimes has the most awful of consequences.
When you speed through a pedestrian crossing, there is a risk that you could batter somebody to death. She filled our lives with light. She was innocent, she was happy.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
He had a beautiful death. He fell asleep in my arms. This is about a dying person's choice to die peacefully when they want to, on their terms.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Ridge and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Time for the news review now. I'm joined by political journalist Zoe Grunwald and The Sun's deputy political editor Ryan Saby, who, Ryan, for some reason I thought you worked at the Mail last hour. Entirely on me. I know you work for The Sun. Nevertheless, let's head into The Observer to kick things off because, and this has obviously been published before the US found their missing airmen in southern Iran, but the headline, 48 hours before all hell will rain down, was Trump's warning.
That's right. We've got this big message from Donald Trump overnight about what his tactics could be over the next few days. But one of the things that this story does focus on is the sort of practicalities of world economies and how they're going to recover, how they can repair in the coming weeks, months, or even years. That is going to, that is the impact of what is happening out in the Middle East. And it seems that Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, will try and gather her counterparts from around the world to actually work out a game plan of getting oil through the Strait of Hormuz. But I think the trouble is, this may not happen while hostilities and conflict is taking place. This is all going to happen once there is some kind of resolution. But the impact for people, British people here domestically, pump prices are going up, energy prices, mortgage rates are going up. There are so many consequences of what is happening. And it may be that all these countries are trying to come together to try and get something passed at the United Nations to make sure there is that shipping is safeguarded. But the impact that is happening now and the long-lasting effects are immense.
Let's look inside, Zoe, the Telegraph, because they've got a striking image there of a young girl holding what looks like a mock-up of a Kalashnikov and saluting there. Alongside this headline, Iran's energy plants bombed ahead of President's Unleashing Hell deadline. They might be winning in their eyes, but there are ramifications for basically destroying a country's civilian infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only that the infrastructure will eventually have to be rebuilt with whatever happens to Iran, but that you are bombing the country with millions of citizens there who need to live and exist in a safe country. If you do that, you know, what country will be created from the remnants? If you destroy their energy infrastructure, what happens to those people? And at what point, actually, does the international community say, no, that's, you know, that is beyond a reasonable defensive action, that becomes a war crime? So absolutely, what we are seeing is, you know, the Iranian people under attack, very, very concerned about their energy infrastructure, their supplies, their food, and the Iranian regime becoming incredibly entrenched. And, you know, in the last piece we were talking about, the way Iran has managed to completely take over the Strait of Hormuz, you know, it's managed to completely cut it off in a way that wasn't anticipated, really, by world leaders. We didn't think there would be that much control. This is clearly not a campaign, the US and Israeli campaign in Iran. This is clearly not going the way they expected it to go. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult, even if Israel is successful in sending Iran back to the Stone Ages, to build a nation that is aligned with Israel's future interests.
Yes, especially as Donald Trump started this by urging everyday Iranians to rise up once more. If their lives are being made really hard as a result, that makes that difficult. Let's not forget, Ryan, there is a war much closer to home. And if we look in the Sunday Times, they talk about Ukraine's fears that Russia's 24-hour drone attacks are exploiting defences that have been diverted to the Gulf. There are wider ramifications of all of this.
Yeah, that's right. A really good piece here by Christina Lamb. And one thing that she talks about is sort of 24 hours of continuous drones, the Russians using 1,000 drones over such a short period of time, and actually just wearing out the Ukrainian people. I think previously that the Russians were using drone attacks during the night into the early hours, but now those exhausted people in Ukraine are having to sort of, you know, be awake literally for, you know, the rest of the day and actually trying to defend themselves. And then that's not without trying to actually attack the Russian drones themselves.
Yeah.
And also the impact that it's having on the economy, because if the people can't go out and the young people can't go to school, it's having so many knock-on impact and consequences.
Let's have a look at a couple of stories a bit closer to home. Front page of the Mail on Sunday, Zoe, has the headline, Drill, Ed, Drill. This is all to do with the North Sea and what seems like a possible U-turn, another one by the Labour government in terms of giving those licences for North Sea gas and oil.
Yeah, so there's this split, reported split in the Cabinet between Ed Miliband, who of course is the Energy Secretary, and Chancellor Rachel Reeves, about potentially releasing the oil and gas in British waters, so lifting this ban that was put in by this Labour government on drilling on the North Sea. Obviously, Ed Miliband is very keen to go further and faster with renewables. He's keen to keep that ban. Rachel Reeves, keeping an eye on growth, thinking about actually what can we do to kind of ease some of the cost of living pressures for voters. There's been some research here that the Mail is reporting on that found that half of all voters think Ed Miliband should drill baby drills, that's drilling in the North Sea. I mean, this is being touted by the opposition, particularly Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage, as the way to deal with the impending further cost of living crisis that's going to come as a result of the Strait of Hormuz being closed and oil and gas supplies being disrupted. But there are many reasons why this actually won't help, not least that this is a mature basin which doesn't actually have as much oil and gas as we might want. It takes a long time to get those operations up and running. And of course, it's all sold on international global markets anyway, so it's not like we can just take that oil and gas and use it for ourselves.
There'd be tax receipts, though, wouldn't there?
That's their argument. But it is a populist solution to a very difficult and complex problem. And obviously, in this time, people are very worried. They want easy answers. But I think there is a reason why, actually, the Prime Minister and the Energy Secretary are saying, look, this shows that our reliance on oil and gas is what has got us into this mess in the first place. The best thing we can do for builds in the future and energy security is pushing with renewables.
Ryan, I wonder if in your own paper, The Sun, this is a headline that shows a popular solution to a tricky problem. Sainsbury's giving its staff stab vests. Tell us more.
Yeah, a really concerning story, and not the sort of situation you sign up to when you go to work in a supermarket. I think the situation has got so bad for people who work in supermarkets that it looks like Sainsbury's are going to issue these stab vests for their security staff. And we've seen this situation this week with the looting in Clapham in South London. But you do hear the sort of the general noise of how difficult and testing it is for people who work in the retail industry. And there's a line here from the British Retail Consortium that says for too many people, violence and abuse are now part of the shopping experience. It's terrible.
It really is terrible. And we'll have to gloss over that story about Italians using so much English. Its language risks dying out. That really isn't molto bene. But you both are. Zoe, Ryan, thank you very much indeed. More in a moment.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Morning, good to have you with us. It's 8 o'clock. You're watching Mornings on Sky News. I'm Matt Barbet. The breaking news today, we got him. America declares they've rescued their fighter pilot who was shot down inside Iran. President Trump says the operation was, in his opinion, one of the most daring in military history, confirming the male crew member is injured but is okay. Also, Houston, we have a small problem. The Artemis 2 crew report issues with the craft's toilet as they continue their mission to the moon. And we'll look at today's papers with political journalist Zoe Grunwald and The Sun's deputy political editor Ryan Saby. Plus, cancelled flights and closed roads. Storm Dave has battered parts of the UK, but the worst looks like it has passed. Good morning. We start this hour with breaking news. An American pilot who was shot down inside Iran has now been rescued by his own side. The president declaring, "We got him," saying US forces pulled off what he is calling one of the most daring operations in history. The airman was found in mountainous country after his fighter jet was downed over southern Iran on Friday. The Iranian regime had reportedly offered up to $60,000 equivalent for the pilot's capture. Our US correspondent James Matthews has more.
There were media reports just before midnight local time, Matt, and confirmed by the US president, as is the way when a big story breaks. President Trump himself confirming the detail, shed some light on the experience of this officer, a colonel, we are told. He was behind enemy lines, according to Donald Trump, in the treacherous mountains of Iran, being hunted down by our enemies, says the president in this Truth social post. He says that the Iranians were getting closer and closer. So it was clearly a race against time and a race against the Iranians to get to their man, Matt. He was found safe and sound, according to the president, does have some injuries, but he will be fined. He will be fine. The president says he was never truly alone because his commander-in-chief, Secretary of War, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and fellow warfighters were monitoring his location 24 hours a day. So that would appear to indicate that the Americans knew where this individual was. It was merely a question of getting to him and getting to him before the Iranians. Aircraft were involved, special forces will have been involved, and according to the president, all have been safely, all are safely away from Iran. So clearly a source of pride for the president. Indeed, he calls this a moment when that all Americans, Republican, Democrat, and everybody else should be proud of it, he says, and united around it. We truly have the best, most professional and lethal military in the history of the world. So the president clearly sees political capital in this. But yes, it's an occasion of relief and success for the US military. But the questions will not be far. Questions about why this happened in the first place, when we were told by the president himself that America enjoyed air superiority, air dominance, and that the Iranians didn't have effectiveness when it came to anti-aircraft fire. But, you know, for this moment, clearly it's what, like I say, all the Americans wanted to hear, and it's great news that the pilot is safe and sound. But again, the questions about this conflict generally, they don't necessarily go away.
Military analyst Sean Bell is here, former pilot, of course, in the RAF, senior pilot, senior officer. Sean, look, let's get on to the questions that James raises in a second. But first and foremost, I know when you heard this has happened, you're thinking about the families back home or be worrying about these flight crew.
Yeah, only because, you know, when you've been in the flying game for a while, people do have accidents. Tragically, many people don't come away from it, and therefore there's always a concern. And particularly, although we've not been hearing much about the aircrew involved in this, for the squadron that they came from, they'll know, and the families will know, but they've not been able to talk about it, obviously for fear that it gets out into the media. But that must be profoundly worrying because they don't know the outcome. And I remember when John Peters went down in the Gulf, you know, I was not proud of it, but I was sobbing away when I heard the news because you just don't know if you're going to see this guy again, an old friend, and therefore it's a great relief for the families, it's a great relief for the squadron personnel. We tend to focus on the headlines and President Trump, but yes, I think there'll be a lot of very happy families as a result of this.
Well, I'm going to focus on President Trump right now because, of course, we learned of this in a very long, by his standards, post on Truth Social. And he uses, as he often does, a lot of superlatives, but saying this is one of the greatest rescues in military history. Is that the case?
It's very difficult to start comparing and contrasting. The big thing is that this isn't just an aircrew running around somewhere in another country and a helicopter goes out and picks them up. It's a much more complicated operation. First of all, he doesn't want to be found for obvious reasons, but therefore you've got to coordinate where and when. The Iranians will know that the rescue's coming, so they will have a whole load of capabilities to try and shoot down the aeroplanes. In fact, we've already heard that one of the drones was shot down that was a part of the package, and with the earlier recovery of the aircrew, 2 of the helicopters got attacked as well. So it's a dangerous operation. It involves many aircraft. President Trump said dozens. I'm not sure that'll be true. But it is a lot of people involved. They're putting their lives at risk to rescue one individual. And it's part of that sort of band of brothers concept. You don't put yourself in harm's way unless you know that people come and help get you out.
We've also shared in the last hour, coming from Iranian state media, that they're claiming a C-130 plane has been shot down. I don't think it was necessarily part of the same thing, necessarily part of the rescue, but nevertheless, if that's the case, and the shooting down of this aircraft as well, where the pilots, both pilots were rescued, it shows that air supremacy doesn't necessarily lead to total infallibility.
No, and part of the big challenge is that you generally, for air supremacy, you want to take out all the radar sites, all the surface-to-air missile systems, and then you can operate fairly high up, away from small arms, machine guns, and actually infrared missiles. You operate above those, and therefore you can do what you like. When you're doing a rescue operation, you've got to pluck people from the ground. You've got to go in at a low level, and that means that the helicopters flying low and slow are vulnerable. The C-130, the Hercules, as we know it, they have a version which is a gunship, because it flies low, it's got lots of opening doors, they can put machine guns into it and all sorts, blistering with air power to provide support. But once again, it's a big target operating near the ground. Now, I have not mentioned the Hercules yet because I'm not entirely sure that we've got enough information that it's credible yet. But the very fact is that these rescue operations are incredibly dangerous. And one of the reasons we didn't hear anything from President Trump, which is unusual for the last couple of days, is that until he got every last aircraft, every last body back from this rescue operation, it was very unlikely because it could easily have spiralled out of control.
Yes, just to confirm, that Hercules line is coming from Iranian state media for the time being. Sean, thank you very much indeed. Let's bring in Diana Magnay, who's our correspondent in Jerusalem. Diana, good morning to you. Interested to know how this is being responded to in the region.
Well, I mean, it's an American story, really, at the end of the day, isn't it? The rescue of that airman. I think what is interesting is to see these statements, and there are quite a few of them from various spokespeople in Iran about the fact that this wasn't quite as scot-free as Donald Trump seems to want to suggest it was. The local police command in Isfahan region saying that a C-130 was downed. The spokesperson for the Iranian Armed Forces on state TV saying that a C-130 and 2 Black Hawk helicopters were downed, and the IRGC Revolutionary Guard spokesperson saying that several flying objects were downed as part of the United States search and rescue mission. So they are certainly tying the fact that they claim to have shot down aircraft which the United States was using in this operation. And I couched it last hour, and I will do the same. This is all, as you were just discussing, coming from state media. Of course, we did see those images on the first day of the rescue of a refueling plane and 2 Black Hawk helicopters, which were being refueled in air as part of the search and rescue mission, trying to find the first pilot, and gunfire coming towards them from the ground. That's video that we've been showing for the last couple of days, and it's quite possible that the Iranians have therefore been using that video and saying we did in fact bring those planes down as part of their propaganda effort to their own people. I am sure that if it is the case that a C-130 has come down, there will have been at least 3 or 4 aircrew on board that we will find out soon enough, because the American policy, as we've just seen, is to recapture every single person that falls on enemy territory, which they have done, you know, as a result of the air crash of the F-15. What I would say in relation to past incidents, Donald Trump said in his Truth Social post, you know, this is the first time in military memory that we have recovered 2 airmen from enemy territory. Now, that's not strictly true. In Benghazi in 2011, I was on board the warship which sent 2 Osprey aircraft to rescue exactly that, 2 airmen who had to eject on enemy territory because of mechanical failure of their aircraft, and the Osprey managed to rescue 1, and then another airman was rescued a day after, who locals had actually taken into their hands. So, you know, there are a few gaps in that Truth Social post, but that is to be expected of Donald Trump, I would say. I think it's very interesting. He gave 24 hours ago a 48-hour deadline for the Iranians to come to the table to make a deal, or there would be all hell that would be rained down on them. We've seen no suggestion whatsoever that is likely. Instead, Iran has continued their bombardments across the region. Kuwait reporting that their government complex has been struck by a drone with quite significant damage. They also had a petrochemicals site hit, also an industrial site in Abu Dhabi hit with a fire there reported. Israel saying that they've hit 120 targets in Iran overnight, and I think it's instructive that they've been going for steel complexes, and also yesterday a petrochemicals complex in Khuzestan region, just at the top of the Gulf. Those are very important industrial pillars for Iran, and you can see them really trying to go for the sort of structural basis of its economy as it continues to hold the global economy at a chokehold in the Straits of Hormuz. Important today, I think, to mention is that it's obviously Easter Sunday. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, has tweeted talking about Christians in the region, saying that here despite the fact that Christians across the Middle East are facing persecution, difficulties across the board, here in Israel, they are protected. I think it's worth mentioning there that the Christian congregation will not be able to go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the Old City behind me today because of restrictions around the numbers of people who can attend services in the Old City. So it will be live streamed, but there will only be a handful of senior clergy conducting religious rites there. And, you know, the majority of Christians in the Holy Land are Palestinian. And I would think that having spoken to some of them in the last couple of days, it is certainly not the case that they feel that their rights as Christians practicing their faith or as Palestinians on their land are being respected, Matt.
Yeah, certainly pertinent on today of all days. Diana, thank you very much indeed. Earlier on, I spoke to military analyst and former US Marine Corps Chief of Staff Brendan Kearney about this latest rescue mission.
I'm thrilled as a fellow service member, although I'm long retired. It's good to see that we were able to successfully rescue this pilot. The alternative was the two alternatives. One was that he became a casualty, and secondly, that he was captured. Neither one of those were palatable. Possibly the capturing part even worse than what death might have foretold for him.
What do you think this now means for the US war effort?
You know, I don't think it's going to change much. I don't think we can let it change, or the president can let it change. And of course, this lies in his hands. He's been predicting another 2 to 3 weeks of intense aerial campaign against Iran. And, you know, if we stop now, what does that mean after having lost 2 aircraft, luckily having saved 3 pilots? I'm not sure that we can stop. I think this is going to have to be followed through, but we have to fully recognize that with this type of effort, this type of combat operations, there's an absolutely excellent chance that there'll be further casualties and that further aircraft may end up being shot down. But that's what the president gets paid for. He's going to have to go ahead and make that judgment call and continue on.
That was Brendan Kearney speaking to me earlier on. To other news now, several weather warnings have now been lifted after the worst of Storm Dave passed over the UK, battering coasts, cancelling flights and closing roads. You'd probably rather not be on this flight. An Aer Lingus plane, it landed safely, by the way, don't alarm you, but it was filmed struggling in the wind to land at Dublin Airport. The airport said 17 flights were cancelled due to the conditions. Let's just see it touch down to reassure you that the pilots did a decent job there landing in Dublin. In Scotland, though, you can see heavy winds were lashing the coast. The yellow weather alert is expected to lift in some parts at noon. Well, above the weather, in space, where the astronauts aboard the Artemis 2's Orion capsule are expected to reach their destination, the far side of the moon, as early as tomorrow. The astronauts spent the early hours of this morning testing the manual piloting function of their spacecraft, taking turns to check its performance. It is designed to fly autonomously, but the test aims to ensure it can be manoeuvred manually if that's needed. The mission has mostly been going pretty smoothly, but the onboard toilet has continued to experience some minor malfunctions, not a problem you'd want to hear halfway to the moon. Engineers suspect ice may be blocking the line that's preventing some waste from the so-called lunar loo from flushing out.
During the night, we tried to vent the wastewater tank that's attached to the toilet. We had problems with that due to a suspected blockage, we think probably due to ice. So we directed the crew overnight to use their collapsible contingency urine devices, just like they did on flight day 1.
Just a short time ago as well, the astronauts aboard Orion took questions from school kids in Canada.
And I wonder, do you still see stars in outer space?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to my crewmates about that today. I've definitely seen stars in outer space, and I was saying I haven't seen as many as I thought I would. So, Reed?
We have so much illumination from the sun on the moon and the earth right now. It is hard at times to see stars. Just like when you walk out in the daytime, you see a blue sky but no stars. We look outside and we see the black space and no stars. But tonight we're going to be pointed into deep space and we're going to turn out all the lights in the spacecraft for the first time on the mission. And if you give yourself about 20 or 30 minutes, we do this all the time on the International Space Station. Christina and I just have great fond memories of this. You'll start to see the stars, and if you give it enough time, you will see so many stars. It's hard to see the constellations because there are so many stars out there. And the coolest part of those stars is they do not twinkle at all. They are just perfect. They almost look fake. They're just perfect pinpricks of light. So that is our homework for tonight, Jeremy. We are doing that.
We'll take a picture.
Great. We now have a question from students in Sanikiluaq, Nunavut.
What types of food do you eat in space and how do you cook it?
Yeah, so I've only been eating space food for a couple days here, but Christina, she lived in space for pretty close to a year. She's eaten a lot of space food, and so we have a few items here to show you. Christina, you want to help me out?
Sure. Let's see where we're going to pull out. So
my dinner.
This is Jeremy's dinner, and in space you really just eat all of your food out of bags of some kind, plastic bags or little metallic bags, because we have to rehydrate a lot of our food. This is actually shrimp cocktail. And this has been rehydrated already, so we added water to it, and the shrimp soaked back up the water, and it's actually pretty tasty. This is an example of a food that has not been rehydrated yet. It got all dried out for flying up here in space, and those are green beans. So we do have to eat our vegetables even in space, but don't worry, they do give us mac and cheese.
where we'd be without mac and cheese. The Prime Minister weighs in a moment after controversial rapper Kanye West is booked to headline several nights of a music festival in London in the summer. More on that in a moment.
Four, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff.
Artemis 2 is on its way to the moon. Every day of its mission will have daily updates at 9:30 in the morning and 6:30 each evening.
Welcome on board the Integrity spacecraft.
So never miss a moment on this historic mission to the moon.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Next, the Prime Minister has criticised a British music festival for signing up rapper Kanye West as their headline act in the summer. He's been booked to perform several nights at the Wireless Festival in London in July, and that's despite previous anti-Semitic and pro-Nazi comments that he's made. Our correspondent Barney Papadopoulos is with me now. This is raising eyebrows, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt, is there, that Kanye West is one of the biggest musical acts to come out of this century. But as you just said, he's also become highly controversial because of a series of anti-Semitic remarks dating back many years now. I can just run you through some of them. In 2022, he was banned from Twitter for anti-Semitic comments. He posted an image of a swastika in a Star of David. He was dropped by Adidas. He was dropped by Instagram, blocked his account. In January last year, he was back on X, as it now was. He put out a series of posts. He said, "I love Hitler." He said, I'm a Nazi. So really controversial, and he hasn't performed in a long time. But Wireless Festival have now invited him to perform at Finsbury Park in July in front of an audience of perhaps 150,000 people. And this has now reached the desk of our Prime Minister. And I can just bring you what the Prime Minister is saying about this. The Prime Minister said, it is deeply concerning that Kanye West has been booked to perform at Wireless despite his previous anti-Semitic remarks and celebration of Nazism. Anti-Semitism in any form is abhorrent and must be confronted clearly and firmly wherever it appears. Everyone has a responsibility to ensure Britain is a place where Jewish people feel safe and secure. I should just point out that in January this year, Kanye West took out a full-page spread in the Wall Street Journal and he apologised. He said, I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm not a Nazi. But clearly still a lot of people very, very hurt, very disturbed by his comments, and it's sparking a backlash today.
Yes, yeah, we saw him several times with Kim Kardashian there, no longer with her, of course, but when he's turned up with his current partner, Bianca Censori, it's hard to show those pictures because she's often not wearing very much. Barnaby, thank you very much indeed. Time now for a look at the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, Storm Dave has passed through, and high-pressure building in the wake of it is going to bring more settled conditions to end the long weekend and an increase early next week in the temperatures too. Right now, though, it's remaining chilly and breezy with a mixture of sunny spells and some blustery showers. They're heaviest and most frequent through central and northern parts of the British Isles, where they may merge to give some longer spells of rain or even hill snow. The odd rumble of thunder cannot be ruled out. Showers are spreading eastward through the day, but drier conditions are falling from the west. Temperatures remaining on the low side.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Coming up, Paul will be here with the sport and, well, celebrations for Southampton after a shock giant killing. They beat Arsenal to reach the FA Cup semi-finals. We'll have more on that and all the goals from St Mary's in a moment. Let's recap our top story this morning. An American pilot whose plane was shot down inside Iran has been rescued by the Americans. Writing on Truth Social, Donald Trump declared, "We got him," saying in his words, US forces have pulled off one of the most daring operations in history. President Trump also confirmed it is a male crew member and he is injured but is said to be OK. In the past few moments, the Israel Defense Forces has posted on X claiming the Israeli Air Force has hit more than 120 targets in central and western Iran over the past 24 hours. We'll have more reaction to that through the morning. Let's talk sport now. Paul is with me. The romance of the FA Cup is not disappointing this year. I hate to say that because my own team, Liverpool, were absolutely demolished by Man City yesterday in short order. But also, even fans of other teams will look at the Arsenal, giant killing at the hands of Southampton and think this was unexpected, but Arsenal, it's not looking good for them at the moment, is it?
No, it isn't. I think it'll be really interesting to see the response because the big games are coming thick and fast for them. They've got Champions League to come this week. They've got a Premier League, obviously, and they're expected to win that title. And the thought of them, you know, just a couple of weeks ago going for the quadruple, now it's down to 2 trophies. If they were to lose out, especially on the Premier League, there's not much coming back from that. So there's a lot of pressure on those players at the moment.
But look, I know we'll focus on Southampton in a moment, and quite rightly so. But let's just have a quick word about Man City. I mean, they've been hot and cold through a lot of the season, but winning the Carabao Cup, beating Arsenal, beating Liverpool yesterday, they still got to play, I think, Arsenal in the Premier League, which is going to be a true 6-pointer for the top 2. They've got momentum now in a way that the other teams around them just don't have.
Well, that's it. And it's very difficult to get back. Arsenal are experiencing that at the moment. And just as they're having that run, Manchester City are coming good and Haaland is starting to score again. Semenyo looks like a good...
Ryan Cherky, I have to say, painful for me to say, but what a player. What a player he is.
Well, you look at... I mean, you can make comparisons there with Liverpool and the signing of Wirtz. And, you know, these teams, the top teams in the Premier League have made some really good signings. These are talented players, but look at the way the Manchester City players are. They're just showing more signs at the moment of settling into their new clubs, and at a time when, well, we call it the business end of the season, don't we? And it is that. And Manchester City look like they are going to push Arsenal all the way.
They certainly do. But listen, I'll let you take it away, Paul, because Southampton deserve the spoils this morning, don't they?
Indeed they do. And Southampton, we're going to hear all about their upset in just a few seconds.
Boys, first of all, just talk me through this photo and what's going on here.
I think it was a 5-a-side tournament, from what I can remember.
To be honest, we did win a lot. So.
I know. Yeah.
It's weird that you've actually found a picture with all us three in it.
Explain to me when you guys all first met and who you first played for. Like, what's the team there? What's the story behind that?
I came to Interwood FC, right? That's where we met.
When did you join, Charles?
So I joined
I know Charles,
probably about under 11s, under 12s.
These are what, I promise you, these are the moments that you remember.
So these are the foundations of what built our career. And like we say, like you train in the academies, but then you go, not only that, but you play on rubbish pitches, but you get used to it, and then you go to your academies and you appreciate it a lot more. And like we say, I think the kids nowadays don't get to see both sides.
We were winning, we were losing. Like you see kids now, we speak about academies, they don't know what winning is. Where we were then growing up, we were going to, like you say, places, Broadwater Farm, going all over them, and we were winning most of the time. So you get that like winning mentality. We knew what it was to win at 10, 11. Whereas you get into academies now, they don't play competitions or for points until they're 18. So from 10 to 16, they're just playing friendlies, and there's nothing on it. You see it now, kids, when they come off the pitch, they don't care if they've won or lost.
And I do say it to the young boys, like, man, when you understand winning and losing, and when it really means something, like, I hated losing more than I liked winning, and I just couldn't take it. We was
crying.
Sore losers, man, sore losers.
You know, Trevor was, like we spoke about, it was all of our dad's friends, and he just made that club feel like a family. We went there and we had fun. Like, he set the foundations for that club.
Him and his brother Danny, you know, Danny's training, and what I loved about Danny going there on a Saturday's training was you had 12-year-olds training with 17-year-olds. And they're all together, there was no bias, there was no anything, and the whole point was, if you're good enough, you're going to do it and you're going to show. And everyone used to do the same thing. I remember the press-ups in and around in the circle, doing that. If one fouled, you had to start again. All them kind of things, I think, was such a basis, and there's them little details that you probably won't think of, and we all got thrown together. But it made the 12-year-olds better, because they're playing, they have to be quicker, they have to be stronger, they have to be quicker in their minds in terms of how they pass and shoot and stuff like that. And with the 17-year-olds is how you have to show the youngsters how good you are. And I thought that the training was really good.
It defo exposed me and made me very comfortable with now, as you guys will know, and you'll find it now with players coming into your teams as well, the adaptation to coming into that changing room. Because we was like 9, 10, 11 playing with, like you're saying, 16, 17-year-olds. And I could just, it wasn't no different, like if he was 11 or 12, it was an easy adaptation. But now where the young ones are not so exposed to all that grassroots, not playing against bigger boys or boys from different types of areas, right? When they do start now come into those environments, again, it's got a lot to do with the mental side now, the social side. Not even if they have the ability, they don't know how to adapt in there, they don't know how to move into the changing rooms. It's all daunting, it's all different, you understand? So what Trevor was able to do, which he really did well, was
it was bringing the whole club together.
Bring everybody together, you understand?
Bring everyone together.
Facilitate so many different types of people coming from so many different situations.
Until year 6, you had to make a choice or not.
Was it year 7? I think.
Yeah, I think it was year 7. I think I was
about
13, 12,
13, so like year 7, year 8.
Yeah.
Them 2 years before having to choose was just like the best, and that's what made you go into it. And then for me, I spent 5 years at Arsenal. We left at the same time, didn't we?
No, I left the year before you.
Yeah. And then I spent 5 years at Arsenal.
When did you?
I went 13. I went to Tottenham at 13, under 13s, yeah. I went left. I was on trial for about 6 weeks, I think, but obviously doing both, and then end up getting signed under 13.
But say we left, I was still coming back, playing every tournament, playing every game.
Yeah, I think we all were at some stage.
Yeah, we all were coming back. So if we didn't have a game on a Saturday, you knew that you was playing for Nitwood, and that wasn't even pushed from our parents. That was pushed from us, because that's how we speak about the culture of the club. That's what the club meant to us.
That's where you get. I felt, honestly, don't get me wrong, you playing with. When you go to the academy, you're playing with better players that the system think was better, right? Like the system they believe is better, like better technical ability, etc. But to actually compete, this is where we got our competitive stuff from. I promise you, because I wasn't having these two try and beat me. There's no way, because they're my friends, right? So it becomes a little bit more personal. So when we came back to here, I wanted to show them. Because if they ain't seen me for 3-4 weeks, like, I've still got your number, or you've got mine, whatever it might be. So this is where we got the competitiveness from.
It is, yeah. The feeling of winning was such a high that it just consumed you, and you just want more of it and more of it and more of it, and that's what you take, and that's what we all took into our careers. You know, that feeling of winning and competing and being successful, really, in our careers, and this is where it started from.
was very calm, collected. I think Bradley was.
I know you mentioned, Paul, last night's women's boxing, but all eyes tonight on Ellie Scotney because Jackie spoke to her a couple of days ago. She's the young boxer from Catford in southeast London who already holds 3 belts at her weight, and she's going for an unprecedented 4th. I think she's fighting Mexican Miley Flores tonight on Easter Sunday, and Ellie herself is quite religious, so it's going to be a busy day for her. And it's shown on Sky tonight.
Yeah, it is. It's shown on Sky, and I think we've become quite accustomed to over this Easter weekend. You know, great live sport, and it's no different in the world of boxing. I think a lot of eyes will be tuned into that one this evening. The same with the FA Cup football today, West Ham against Leeds as well. And there's always plenty going on this weekend.
Yeah, you mentioned the Champions League coming up for Arsenal. I'm particularly nervous about Liverpool facing PSG. I have to tell you, I may have to go for another haircut so I can avoid watching that one like I did yesterday.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, a lot. Well, look, they won it last season, didn't they? And Liverpool did manage to get a goal against them. I think they beat them in Paris, but ultimately ended losing the tie. So you never know, but I'm not confident. Paul, good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
indeed. Coming up in a moment, we'll be discussing the stories making the headlines in the papers today with the political journalist Zoe Grunewald and The Sun's deputy political editor Ryan Sabey.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Over the next 45 days, an estimate 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. We take you to the heart of the story in the largest democracy in the world.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionately. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
Those vivid colours of summer have faded now, but the trauma for everyone who witnessed what happened here hasn't gone away.
Devastation. We lost 3 of them.
Ruda Cabana's guilty pleas mean they won't have to relive what they saw in court, but everyone here tells you they'll carry it for the rest of their lives. You see people running red lights time after time after time. This is an offence that sometimes has the most awful of consequences.
When you speed through a pedestrian crossing, there is a risk that you could batter somebody to death. She filled our lives with light. She was innocent, she was happy.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
He had a beautiful death. He fell asleep in my arms. This is about a dying person's choice to die peacefully when they want to, on their terms.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Let's have a look at the papers now. Back again, political journalist Zoe Grunwald and The Sun's deputy political editor, Ryan Sabian. Ryan, let's get straight into your paper. I mean, it's slightly out of date, this story now. Not The Sun's fault, of course. It's more to do with events overtaking things, with that downed pilot being found by the US. But nevertheless, the headline, 48 hours to hell, I mean, it could still play out if Donald Trump decides to change things up.
Yeah, the US president has set out his so-called ground rules for how he sees the next few days playing out in Iran. It wasn't that long ago that he said Iran had 48 hours to decide. Then it was 10 days. Yeah. We're now in the sort of last 48 hours of that countdown. So I think let's just see where he is. But if he is saying that there is going to be maybe ground forces go into Iran, go into Cargo Island, where the oil is in Iran. This could move up to another level, this conflict. And it just shows you, whether it's because he's under pressure internally within America, his poll ratings aren't very good. Does he feel like he needs to do this to actually sort of boost his standing with the American people? Yeah. And it's a big decision. It's a big decision for him. But then also this piece also focuses on the knock-on consequences for the everyday person, whether it's petrol prices, when to book your holiday, and also cricket balls.
There's a shortage.
Yeah, there's a shortage of it, because that's the stitching on cricket balls, for Duke's cricket balls, is actually done in Asia. And because of the conflict, it looks like there'll be a shortage for the cricket season that started just a few days ago. But the big picture is Donald Trump and what he does in the next few hours.
Yeah, I think people will be concerned that he may be saying this, it'd be bluster to try and get the Iranians to do a deal, but at the same time he may back himself into a corner and feel he has to do something. It does feel like it's on a little bit of a knife edge in that respect. Zoe, let's have a look at the Sunday Express. They say Brexit reset will cost the UK £3 billion a year, and add that Sir Keir Starmer is being accused of quietly signing Britain up to Brussels. Who's accusing him of that? Is it happening?
I think it's the Sunday Express.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so this comes after Keir Starmer's speech last week, where he essentially said, because of all the turmoil in the Middle East, because shifting, our relationship with the US is shifting, there is strength in numbers, there's strength in aligning with the EU. And, of course, this has got the usual uproar from the usual suspects, the Sunday Express being one of them. They're now talking about that if Sir Keir Starmer did try and take the UK back into some kind of deal with Europe, potentially the single market, this could cost the Treasury £2.9 billion a year. This is essentially based on looking at Norway, which has a similar model. This costs them £390 million a year, and they've times it by 7 because their economy is 7 times less smaller than ours. But the government have come back and said, not only is this sum based on purely hypothetical figures, essentially you've kind of, just based it on Norway, we've got no reason to believe that would be the case. We aren't planning to take the UK back into the single market. So not only is this hypothetical, it's also not going to happen. And then, of course, there's also the fact that the House of Commons' own figures predicts that we are losing about £90 billion a year from not being part of the EU. That is the cost to the UK economy. So £3 billion, a drop in the market compared to how much we are losing every year by not being a part of the European Union.
Yes, it's something we used to be net contributors to, of course. Others will be quick to point out. Ryan, let's have a look at the Mail. They say Kemi and Nigel are neck and neck. And two individuals who don't even have to use their surnames. Everyone knows who we're talking about. Yeah, fascinating polling in the Mail on Sunday, and it puts Reform, the Conservatives and the Greens all on 21%. And one of the sort of key things of this polling is the fact that when people are asked the question, it's on how they would vote at the next election rather than how they would vote tomorrow. Right. So there is a little bit of weighting on this, but it does show you whether Kemi Badenoch has had some kind of resurgence after, some might say, a stuttering start. But also, when it comes to Reform, have they sort of reached some kind of plateau? Now, they still are getting
good figures, but have they just reached the sort of the high point? And people are, are looking at the party. Is it a Conservative Party Mark II with the, Robert Jenrick being brought in, the Deems Zahawi? Are people just seeing it through and Suella Braverman through that kind of prism? So they're sort of looking at this piece, looks at the option of whether you have a progressive alliance of parties on the left, would they all come together? What happens about on the right with the Conservative reform? And they mention Rupert Lowe's party, Restore Britain, that now has 123,000 members, which is more than the sort of Conservative Party. And
he had a big falling out with Nigel Farage.
Exactly.
Hence that Restore being started in the first place.
So people who have fallen out with Nigel Farage in terms of not liking reformers as much as they did, are they now moving over to Rupert Lowe? So it's a big split across both divides.
Let's have a look, Zoe, inside the Telegraph. I don't know if we've just got this story or the photo that's next to it, which is unrelated, but I want to refer to that photo because it's a trio you wouldn't ever expect to put together. It's got the Duke of Sussex pitched alongside Eileen Gu, the Olympic skiing star, and Justin Trudeau, the former Canadian Prime Minister. Apparently his girlfriend, Katy Perry, was also there. These are people you'd never put together in the same ski gondolier a year ago, but there you go, caught my attention. Next to it, though, is the story we're going to talk about. Italians using so much English, its language risks dying out. Although, I have to say, Italians are some of the best at talking with their hands in the world. The gesticulating is a big part of it. But what's the story?
Yeah, so this is a prediction that's made by the head of the Accademia della Crusca, which is the world's oldest language institute. It was founded in 1583 to preserve the purity of the Italian language. They are warning that Italian is kind of getting swept away by the increasing use of Italians using English words. So the growing use of what they're calling Itanglese or Italiano, which has been accelerated by the pandemic. They talk about phrases such as long COVID, lockdown, contact tracing, smart working, all being used now in Italian parlance. They say English is progressively eroding the use of Italian in the world's research and education. And they also talk about how Italian is actually, it's quite a new language compared to, say, French or English. So it doesn't kind of have that resilience that these other languages have. But it's basically a warning to Italians, keep using the Italian language. Don't start using the English language. I mean, the Italian language is so beautiful. Don't replace it with,
Right, so some of the words they've adopted is they say box, that actually they use that for a car garage space, baby parking as a creche or nursery. A bomber has nothing to do with B-17s or Lancasters. It denotes a high-scoring striker in a football team. And they have a word sexy shot, but I don't even want to tell you why they use that one. Anyway, moving swiftly on, let's stay in the Telegraph, Ryan, a more serious story. About boys being let down by a lack of role models. I think this is coming from this meeting of teaching unions who are warning of an increase in misogyny in the classroom being aimed at female teachers. Yeah, there's been some analysis done by the Centre for Social Justice, and it just shows that the disappearance of youth clubs and volunteers volunteering of men in sort of sports and leisure clubs has really had this real impact on young men. And this report finds that 1 in 4 boys that were sort of completely happy with their lives 10 years ago is down from 15 years ago when it was 1 in 3. So it just shows you how there has been some kind of generational shift. And brings back to Gareth Southgate, the former England manager, talking about this when he made a major speech just, I think it was about a year or so ago, saying young boys were withdrawing from society. Were they getting involved in too much gaming, talking about online influencers? So it is a real issue. A lot of people are talking about that Lutheran documentary right now, aren't they, about the manosphere? And what you sort of learn from it is just how sad, in some ways damaged, some of these individuals are. And you kind of hope that some of these young lads who perhaps being influenced by that, it's a shame they don't know the true story, that it's kind of tragic, some of this stuff. Yeah, and I think there's a real recognition going on now about the role of social media in this, particularly the algorithm. So if you compare a teenage boy, a 14-year-old boy's feed on TikTok or Instagram or whatever to that of a 14-year-old girl, immediately, as soon as the algorithm figures out their age and their gender, they are served a whole different raft of content that quickly pushes them into manosphere, misogynistic content. And there was a poll this weekend done by a teachers' union that disclosed that so many female teachers are now reporting, I think it was a quarter of female teachers now are reporting misogyny directed
at them from boys in the classroom.
Yeah.
And they are directly linking this to the growing role of the manosphere.
It's also pushing messages of people that the older generations have never even heard of, whereas the younger... I mean, that became more apparent when Charlie Kirk died, and there was seems to be a cut-off point, sub-30, everyone knew who he was, and over 30, a lot of people didn't have any clue who he was, which shows you how those algorithms are working. Obviously, slightly different messages there. Should we talk, Zoe, marmalade? I mean, look, it's breakfast time. And the Observer says, Razor Toast British marmalade survives a storm in a jar. What's that all about?
Yeah, so there were fears that marmalade, fans of marmalade, apparently that is a group that exists. I do like marmalade, I just didn't realise there was a...
shredless?
Shredded.
OK.
Yeah.
Old school.
I like it chunky. It was rebranded, they thought it was going to be rebranded citrus marmalade because of a new trade deal done between the UK and the EU. And of course, Reform was furious about this. Richard Tice, the deputy, said, no bungling Brussels bureaucrats should be telling Brits how to label our delicious marmalade. Hands off our marmalade. Anyway, Richard Tice has got what he wanted. It's going to remain just marmalade. OK, enjoy that if you're putting it on your toast this Easter morning. Zoe, Ryan, thank you both very much indeed. More coming up after the break.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. You're watching Mornings on Sky News with me, Matt Barbet. We got him. America declares they've rescued their fighter pilot who was shot down inside Iran. President Trump says the operation was one of the most daring in military history, confirming the male crew member is injured but is okay. Also this morning, Houston, we have a small problem. The Artemis 2 crew report issues with the craft's toilet as they continue their mission to the moon. We'll have our mission special at 9:30. Also today, I'll be speaking to royal commentator Robert Jobson as the King and Queen prepare for their annual Easter Sunday service at Windsor, but with some key absences. And cancelled flights, closed roads too. Storm Dave batters parts of the UK, but the worst has now passed. Good morning. An American pilot who was shot down inside Iran has now been rescued by his own side. The president declaring, "We got him," saying US forces pulled off what he is describing as one of the most daring operations in military history. The airman was found in mountainous country after his fighter jet was downed over southern Iran on Friday. The country's regime had reportedly offered a $60,000 reward for his capture. Our US correspondent James Matthews has the latest.
There were media reports just before midnight local time, Matt, and confirmed by the US president, as is the way when a big story breaks. President Trump himself confirming the detail, shed some light on the experience of this officer, a colonel, we are told. He was behind enemy lines, according to Donald Trump, in the treacherous mountains of Iran, being hunted down by our enemies, says the president in this Truth Social post. He says that the Iranians were getting closer and closer. So it was clearly a race against time and a race against the Iranians to get to their man, Matt. He was found safe and sound, according to the president, does have some injuries, but he will be fine. He will be fine. The president says he was never truly alone because his commander-in-chief, Secretary of War, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and fellow warfighters were monitoring his location 24 hours a day. So that would appear to indicate that the Americans knew where this individual was. It was merely a question of getting to him and getting to him before the Iranians. Aircraft were involved. Special forces will have been involved. And according to the president, all have been safely, all are safely away from Iran. So clearly a source of pride for the president. Indeed, he calls this a moment when that all Americans, Republican, Democrat, and everybody else should be proud of it, he says, and united around it. We truly have the best, most professional and lethal military in the history of the world. So the president clearly sees political capital in this. But yes, it's an occasion of relief and success for the US military. But the questions will not be far. Questions about why this happened in the first place, when we were told by the president himself that America enjoyed air superiority, air dominance, and that the Iranians didn't have effectiveness when it came to anti-aircraft fire. But, you know, for this moment, clearly it's what, like I say, all the Americans wanted to hear, and it's great news that the pilot is safe and sound. But again, the questions about this conflict generally, they don't necessarily go away.
Our military analyst Sean Bell is here, former senior pilot as well in the RAF. Look, Sean, we'll get onto those questions that James quite rightly points to. But in the first instance, this is a human story about this pilot who's been found. I mean, that gap between ejecting from the plane that had been shot and being found, it must be terrifying for him and for the family back home and his colleagues in the US Air Force too.
Yeah, in fact, we were talking off set with a couple of your guests doing the paper review, and they said, is it fear? And actually, I don't remember ejection. And when you talked to John, there was no fear involved. It was massive amounts of adrenaline. And actually, because part of the training that you go through means that you are... I think John used the term, he plugged a new cassette in, because he's done the flying bit. Now I've got to do the escape and evasion bit. Yeah. And it's just right... next task, I've got to get on with that. I think it's far more difficult for the families around. When John Peters, from the Gulf War, he
was captured by Iraqis and paraded in front of a camera. Yeah.
I remember, vividly, I was across in Detchi Mamanu doing some training, and all of us floods of tears, and went to see his family, and of course, incredibly. So the relief there will be palpable. I think that's the story that often doesn't get told, that they will have known about this, the fact that it was all radio silence for everybody else, they will have known. But for the individual concern, yes, it's the end of a very difficult and fraught danger where he's trying to balance escape and evasion from the Iranians, but also trying to get picked up by friendly forces.
And the big questions that James alluded to there are all about the balance. I mean, this is massively one-sided in terms of Israeli and US impact on Iran. But that's not to say that Iran can't, as we've seen with this, strike back in some way. And that's a success for them.
I think it's a really good example of why you've got to be very careful with language because, President Trump is, overwhelming dominance, it's air dominance. It doesn't mean that you can't do these sorts of things and shoot down aircraft. History is littered with, you set these surface-to-air missile traps, there are mobile surface-to-air missile systems, there's handheld systems, and also there's guns. And whenever you're doing a rescue operation, all the aircraft that would normally be well high in the air actually end up coming down to low level. And we've seen several images, we're seeing some of them now, of some of these helicopters by day. You imagine you've got a rifle or a machine gun. It's not difficult to take a pot shot. Now, it's very difficult, actually, because the bullets will not go straight. You aim at where the helicopter is, but by the time the bullets get there, the helicopter has moved on. But it's still a very risky operation. And we heard from the first operation, 2 of the helicopters were targeted and damaged. This most recent operation, it sounds like there was some sort of engagement. I suspect over the coming days we're going to hear more, but it wasn't a smooth extraction operation.
Prior to this, though, all the messaging from Donald Trump was 48 hours to hell. We're going to send Iran back to the Stone Age, ramping up the rhetoric on his side. Do you think that this rescue could impact his decision-making?
Yeah, I know that it was a question asked earlier. I mean, bluntly, President Trump will turn around and say no. But I think what's interesting is the mood when you have the prospect of one of your soldiers, your military personnel, potentially going to be captured and paraded. Now, if you're serious about putting US Marine Corps forces, tens of thousands of boots on the ground, it won't be one person, it could be several that are captured. It won't be one that's injured, it could be several that are killed. And all of a sudden, this has woken up the American public, potentially, to that there is a real consequences to this war. So it's difficult to say. I don't think militarily it'll throw the US off track, but it wasn't popular in US anyway. This won't have helped Donald Trump's ratings.
Sean, for the time being, thank you very much indeed. Next, Sky's Data and Forensics Unit has investigated a series of Israeli strikes on checkpoints in Iran that are manned by the Basij, a militia group which is partially comprised of civilians. There's evidence that group has been actively recruiting children into its ranks. So is targeting the Basij potentially a war crime? Tom Cheshire has been taking a look.
Civilian casualties or the use of child soldiers. Sky's Data and Forensics Unit has uncovered potential war crimes in Iran. Ali Reza Jafari was 11 years old when he was killed in an alleged Israeli airstrike. He was on the same road as this strike at a checkpoint on Artemis highway manned by an Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps militia. This is a video released by the IDF, and it will show the moment of a missile strike. Our analysis and information released by the IRGC suggest that this is likely the strike that killed Ali Reza. But the militia said Ali Reza had been killed while on duty. How can an 11-year-old be on active duty in a war? Well, Ali Reza's father was a member of the Basij, one of the enforcers of the Iranian regime. It's a voluntary militia which has long been part of the domestic security apparatus. It played a big role in the bloody suppression of protests earlier this year, which left thousands of Iranians dead. Sky's Data and Forensics team has uncovered the strategy by the IDF to target Basij checkpoints. We've identified 19 of these airstrikes. Compared to the high-level assassination campaign against senior Iranian leaders, this is about targeting the ordinary rank and file. What complicates things and brings a much darker side to this story is that the Basij has been recruiting children. The IRGC, which runs the Basij, has launched a campaign encouraging children as young as 12 to register as volunteers of the Defenders of the Homeland. Among the activities listed on this poster, which seemingly features a family with children, are operational patrols. We've also verified a video of an IRGC leader promoting the campaign.
We have had many requests from teenagers and young people who want to participate in these checkpoints. And given the age of those seeking to participate and requesting to be present, we've lowered the age limit to 12 years and above.
Children should not be placed in harm's way. The use of civilian shields in particular to try and protect combatants or military objects is itself a war crime. And this is but one of the many tragedies of the terrible war that we're seeing unfold in the Middle East today.
The military recruitment of children is a war crime under the Geneva Convention. An Israeli military official told Sky News, in conducting strikes, particularly aerial strikes, the IDF is not able to determine the age of every combatant who may be harmed, nor is it required to do so under international law. It is Iran's responsibility to put an end to this criminal practice. The Iranian embassy in London did not respond to our request for comment. The Basij remains a target for Israel, which says it is around halfway through its list of war objectives. And if the organisation carries out its child recruitment drive, well, that means they will continue to be targets too.
That's Tom Cheshire. Now, the broader impact of the war is still causing issues right around the world. Fuel shortages in particular are being hardest felt across Southeast Asia and the Asia-Pacific, where they usually get oil from Iran. In Australia, hundreds of petrol stations have run dry, and Sky's Nicole Johnston has more from there now.
The issue is Australia does have enough petrol, enough diesel, enough jet fuel at this stage. The problem is, though, people just don't believe it. There's no certainty about the future. So people are hoarding petrol. And that's been going on for the last couple of weeks now at petrol stations across the country. Even though the government has told people not to do it, there are people turning up and filling up car after car. They're filling up small drums worth of petrol. And that's why we're starting to see hundreds of these regional petrol stations running out of fuel. Now, it's the long weekend here, just as it is in the UK, a time of year when people are normally in their cars, they're on the roads, they're heading out to the countryside, to coastal areas to visit family. But some of the surveys that have been done is that half of Australians have decided that they'll stay home. They're too worried about the global uncertainty, the economic crisis, about whether they could even get stuck in a remote country area and find that they can't get any fuel. Now, the government, of course, is trying to tell people, stay calm, we've got it under control. But the issue is no one really believes them. It sounds good on paper, 30 days worth of petrol, 40 days worth of diesel, but everyone knows that a real crunch time is coming in mid-April, end of April and into early May, when those last ships out of the Gulf make it to Asia and from Asia to Australia. And while the government says, look, we've got ships on the way, we don't think we're going to run out, clearly no one is quite confident enough of that yet. And despite all of these sort of urgings by the government that people should not go and sort of run petrol stations dry, people are essentially doing it.
Let's have a look at the other stories this morning now. Several weather warnings have been lifted after the worst of Storm Dave passed over the UK, battering coasts, cancelling some flights and also closing some roads. Now, you'd probably rather not be on this flight, which did land safely, by the way. Don't be alarmed. It's an Aer Lingus plane. It was filmed struggling somewhat in the wind to land at Dublin Airport. The airport said 17 flights, in fact, were cancelled due to the conditions. But kudos to the pilot for landing this one safe and sound in Dublin. In Scotland, you can see the heavy winds that were lashing the coast. A yellow weather alert is expected to be lifted at around about noon. Teachers are warning that rising violence and ridicule from students are making them feel increasingly unsafe in the classroom and could force them out of the profession. Our education reporter Anjum Pirbakos sat down with a teacher in North London who says he was physically attacked by his students.
For an increasing number of teachers today, going to work isn't just stressful, it's becoming dangerous.
He punched me in the face, caught me square in the eye, lost vision for about half an hour in my eye, and I was told to just sit out during lunchtime. I was in my office sort of contemplating what has happened, trying to digest it.
Moments like this are no longer isolated. Many teachers say they're becoming part of the job.
Like I was kicked, punched, bitten, physically attacked.
Behind classroom doors, the role of a teacher is shifting. It's no longer just about education, it's about control and sometimes survival.
Staff members being bitten, staff members being pushed, kicked, punched, spat at, coughed on during COVID, urinated on, just horrific things.
He says the impact didn't stop when the school day ended at his former school.
When I was in this setting, I started to self-harm. I was diagnosed with depression. I was put on medication because I did have suicidal thoughts. I just wanted it all to go away.
But inside classrooms, students are noticing something too, a shift in what behaviour looks like now.
With the amplified access they have to social media that we didn't have, and how they're seeing people our age and what we're saying, they've tried to imitate that more, and that's come off as bad behaviour.
It doesn't just stay online. Students say it follows teachers into the classroom. Teachers aren't just authority figures anymore. They're becoming content.
I've witnessed online bullying, not just via or in between students, but between students and teachers, where students will post videos of teachers edited, whether it be with AI or themselves, about the teachers, whether it be the teachers saying something that they haven't really said.
A new report by the National Foundation for Educational Research finds pupil behaviour is worsening, and more teachers say they're spending too much time dealing with it.
Pupil behaviour is a real issue, and where pupil behaviour is poor, teachers are more likely to leave. And also teachers' workload, so the tasks that they're dealing with and the amount of pressure they have on them are all factors that go into the reasons why teachers leave.
A Department for Education spokesperson said, "To restore teaching as the very highly valued profession it should be, we have taken action to boost teacher pay, maternity pay, and we are tackling poor pupil behaviour, high workload and poor well-being, so even more teachers stay on in the profession and thrive." What's clear is that when the behaviour slips, it's the students who suffer. And when teachers step away, the students are left to stand alone. Anjum Piabakos, Sky News.
Let's take you live to the Vatican now. This is Pope Leo XIV, and it is his first Easter since he became Pope, which was in May last year, of course. Let's just give you some of the atmosphere on one of the holiest days in the Christian calendar.
Surrexit Dominus de sepulcro, qui pro nobis pependit in ligno. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Surrexit Dominus vere, et apparuit Simoni. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
Pope Leo there on what looks like a very bright and sunny day at the Vatican, beginning his first service, first Easter Sunday service as Pope Leo XIV, of course, the first American Pope in history, leading prayers there on Easter Sunday.
Four, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff.
Artemis 2 is on its way to the moon. Every day of its mission will have daily updates at 9:30 in the morning and 6:30 each evening.
Welcome on board the Integrity spacecraft.
So never miss a moment on this historic mission to the moon.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Now, a modern take on the play All My Sons, which had its original Broadway run 80 years ago, has hit theatres in the UK. Sky's Bethany Manel sat down with the show's main actors, Bryan Cranston and Marianne Jean-Baptiste, to discuss how relevant the play's themes are in today's post-truth era.
At the play, All My Sons, 80 years old, but your themes couldn't seem to be more alive or timely or almost changing on a daily basis, the deconstruction of the American dream. As the actors in this play, is that something that's very present with you?
No. I think you can't play to that. You're aware of it, obviously, but we just play the truth of the characters, their relationships, their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an actor's sin to judge your character. You know, you have to understand
him or her. You have to justify why your character would behave this way or say that word or feel this way about another character. But to step outside and go, oh, you know, why is he doing it? Or there's a larger meaning to it. I think it gets you to, we have to stay subjective to it. Let the audience feel that. And then as they leave the theater, I always say that's if we have them talking when they're leaving the theater and still feeling it, we've really done our job.
So that's what you do as actors. You bring your personal experience to the play, and then I guess you apply that emotion, because let's face it, that's what this is about, isn't it? Seeing emotion on the stage.
Right. There's a lot of my father in this character that I play. I just plucked him and said, come with me, and we're on stage together. And I remember taking my father to therapy once, right? And he recited back to me and my siblings. We thought this was a great breakthrough. We're able to finally talk about his past and, you know, the war and all this. It wasn't that way. He was too closed down. Right. And he quoted Oedipus. I don't think he realized it, but he did. He said, I'd rather stick needles in my eyes than to go through that again. And it's like, that's how painful it was.
It strikes me that in this day and age, truth means something a bit different. Oh, yeah. Truth has changed what is true. What is it? We're in a post-truth era. Yeah. And sometimes lies can be reframed as, what is it, alternative facts?
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of it, because no two people are going to have the same experience. You know, different things are going to resonate with different people. And I never argue with anybody when they come to see a play and they go, oh, that was about that bit. And I'm interested and intrigued why they thought it. But it's like, it's theirs.
Post-truth era, it makes me shiver. But it's true that the perception of the truth is even more powerful than the truth itself. And that's a scary thing.
Pretty great cast that play has, I have to say. Time now for a look at the weather.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
High pressure building in the wake of Storm Dave will bring more settled conditions to end the bank holiday weekend and an increase in temperatures earlier in the week as well. For now, it's pretty chilly out there, breezy as well, with a mixture of sunny spells and some blustery showers. They'll be heaviest and most frequent through central and northern parts of Britain, where they may merge to give some longer spells of rain. The odd rumble of thunder can't be ruled out either. The showers, though, will spread eastward through the day, drier conditions following behind from the west, temperatures remaining slightly on the low side in the north.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Coming up, our space special at 9:30. The Artemis 2 moon mission experiences a minor malfunction, though. It's with its toilet. We'll bring you the sanitised details in a moment. Welcome to our special coverage of the Artemis 2 moon mission. The astronauts aboard the Orion capsule are expected to reach their destination, the far side of the moon, as early as tomorrow. Now, they spent the early hours of this morning testing the manual piloting function of their spacecraft, taking turns to check its performance. It is designed to fly autonomously, but the test aims to ensure it can be manually manoeuvred if they need to do that. Now, while the mission has mostly been going smoothly so far, it has to be said the onboard toilet has continued to experience some minor malfunctions, not what you want to hear when you're a long way from home. Now, engineers suspect ice may be blocking the line that prevented some waste from the so-called lunar loo from flushing out.
During the night, we tried to vent the wastewater tank that's attached to the toilet. We had problems with that due to suspected blockage, we think probably due to ice. So we directed the crew overnight to use their collapsible contingency urine devices, just like they did on flight day 1.
Could be a lot worse, of course. Our science and technology editor, Tom Clark, has more now.
Moon mission day 4 and another record set for the furthest ever live interview with questions from Canadian kids.
Do astronauts get special training to do CPR in space? How do you actually do that when there's low gravity?
I can show you in the camera view if I just slide Reed over here. And so what I need to do is support myself and have him against something. So if I put my back here,
we rearranged the wall.
and Reed here, I can push on him.
That is an obviously large moon looking out the window. Good gracious.
The astronauts, now 2/3 of the way to the moon, are seeing it as few humans ever have.
Well, last night we did have our first view of the moon far side, and it was just absolutely spectacular. I think that one of the interesting things that happens when you look at a moon that inherently just looks different is like the darker parts just aren't quite in the right place, and something about you senses that is not the moon that I'm used to seeing. And sure enough, we got out our lunar targeting information, and we matched up, and we're like, yeah, that is the dark side. That is something we have never seen before.
It wasn't all sightseeing. Much of today was spent trying to fix Orion's toilet. The astronauts found they couldn't empty its tank, liquid waste freezing in pipes, the suspected cause.
I think the fixation on the toilet is kind of human nature, right? I mean, everybody knows how important that is to us here on Earth, and it's harder to manage in space. So it's, I'm interested in it. You know, I know we're in a good state right now, but I would really like for it to be in the best state that it can be for the crew's sake. You know, they're kind of like, it's a little bit of camping in space already, but then it makes it camping a little bit tougher when you don't have the full capability of the toilet.
The crew did get things moving. Flurries of frozen urine filmed venting into space. But for now, the toilet is for solids only. To pee, they must boldly go in backup containers. 2 of the crew then took turns to manually fly Orion, checking its handling, a key part of the test flight.
And absolutely unbelievable. This is incredible.
And all the while, the crew aware of the increasing distance between them and home.
This morning when my 2 daughters came on and it was just the 3 of us talking, it was surreal. Just we're up here, we're so far away, and for a moment I was reunited with my little family, and it was just the greatest moment of my entire life.
Integrity Houston, our saws are in position to take this family portrait.
Controllers positioned a solar array camera so it could snap a selfie of the crew through Orion's windows, nearly 200,000 miles from Earth.
Okay, we'll freeze in 3, 2, 1, mark.
Maybe the distance we are from you makes you think what we're doing is special, but we're the same distance from you, and I'm trying to tell you, just trust me, you are special. In all of this emptiness, this is a whole bunch of nothing, this thing we call the universe. You have this oasis, this beautiful place that we get to exist together. I think as we go into Easter Sunday thinking about, you know, all the cultures all around the world, whether you celebrate it or not, whether you believe in God or not, this is an opportunity for us to remember where we are, who we are, and that we are the same thing, and that we got to get through this together.
Just the togetherness is never less than impressive. Kate Arkless-Gray joins me again now, space journalist. Isn't that just the... I mean, Victor seems to nail it every time he opens his mouth in terms of setting the perspective, reminding us of our place in this, I think his words were this whole bunch of nothingness, Kate.
Absolutely, and it's just such a difference to the rest of the news that we're hearing at the moment, you know, and this great reminder that we are all... we're all kind of astronauts in our own way on spaceship Earth. This is the one place that is keeping us all alive, and it's got that very thin atmosphere that protects us. And you know, when you're so far away, you're not seeing borders, you're not seeing countries, you're not seeing differences. You're just seeing our lovely blue marble hanging there in the emptiness of space, and everybody they know and love, other than their crewmates, are on that blue marble hanging in space.
Also, for a while, Kate, they weren't seeing a working toilet either. And I'm sorry to bring it back down to a more prosaic level, although NASA take it seriously. And it is serious, really, isn't it? There's one thing about the fantastical nature of this mission. But really, if they can't just live as human beings need to live, then that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, luckily for them, this is just a 10-day mission. But if you were going to be on a longer duration mission, you absolutely would want those creature comforts. So they have been using, NASA loves an acronym, so we have the CCUs, which are collapsible contingency urinals, which are basically bags that you can use to go to the toilet in. And again, they're still lucky that they have a toilet at all. I mean, a toilet with a door, so they get a small amount of privacy. But the Apollo missions, they did not have that at all. So it's already a step forward. But yeah, as you say, they had an issue venting urine because some of the pipes had frozen. So they've changed the attitude of the spacecraft, trying to get a bit of sunlight on that, and that has helped a bit. They're just hoping to get the toilet in a fully working state for the rest of the mission.
Yeah, a toilet out of order sign when you're miles from home. Yeah, no fun indeed. Let's just pick up on a couple of things we learned from Tom's piece there. It was a really interesting question by one of those Canadian school kids about doing CPR in space, and I think it was Jeremy and Reed showed what they do. It is vitally important, isn't it? There's no emergency service that can get to them. Even just speaking to Earth, there's a delay there. So they have to have those skills on hand. And it's not the same doing CPR in zero gravity as it would be on Earth.
Well, no, I mean, we know the physics truth that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So usually when you're on Earth and you've got somebody lying on the floor, you can just push down on them, but you have gravity there to help you. In space, if you were to push on someone, they would just float across to the other side of the capsule and you would be going in the opposite direction. So you need to find ways that you can kind of strap in or secure the person that needs the help, but then you yourself need to be have something to kind of keep you in place, because if you were again pushing down on them, you would just be pushing yourself further away, and that's no good. And the delay that you mentioned, we're seeing it in some of those news conferences and the questions. There's just a few seconds delay in them getting the signal and being able to respond. If we were to go further into space, if we want to do a Mars mission, for example, that delay could get up to about 21 minutes.
Yeah.
So telemedicine, which was created to be able to help the astronauts, say, on the International Space Station, you'd no longer be able to use that because you couldn't do surgery from afar if there's a 21-minute delay in the signal getting to the spacecraft.
Tell us about the importance of them trying out these manual manoeuvres, because mostly it's done autonomously. A lot of controls are done from here on Earth, but still they need to know what they're flying if they need to get their hands on those controls at some point.
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of them are trained pilots, so this is an excellent test flight for them. But yeah, they want to know how the Orion spacecraft is handling, the kind of degree of accuracy that they can move that in. And that's going to be incredibly important for the next mission, Artemis 3, because that's when they're going to be sending not only Orion into low Earth orbit, but one of the human landing systems, or perhaps even both of those human landing systems. And they need to be able to manually fly Orion so that they can dock with that landing system. And the same will be true on future missions when they've landed on the moon, coming off the moon and docking with Orion. It'll be the other way around. You'll need to control the human landing system so that it can dock safely with Orion and bring the crew home to Earth.
Kate, stay with us because we'll talk more in a moment as the crew heads towards the far side of the moon, expected to get there tomorrow. More on our Moon Mission Daily Special after this.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Over the next 45 days, an estimate 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. We take you to the heart of the story in the largest democracy in the world.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Thank you. Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
Those vivid colours of summer have faded now, but the trauma for everyone who witnessed what happened here hasn't gone away.
Devastation. We lost 3 of them.
Ruda Cabana's guilty pleas mean they won't have to relive what they saw in court, but everyone here tells you they'll carry it for the rest of their lives. You see people running red lights time after time after time. This is an offence that sometimes has the most awful of consequences.
When you speed through a pedestrian crossing, there is a risk that you could batter somebody to death. She filled our lives with light. She was innocent, she was happy.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
He had a beautiful death. He fell asleep in my arms. This is about a dying person's choice to die peacefully when they want to, on their terms.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
It is day 4 of the Artemis 2 mission to the moon out of 10 days. Now, the first such crewed voyage in more than 50 years is what it is, and it's unlikely to be the last. But why is establishing a lunar foothold so important, and not just for the US? It's all to do with the moon's water reserves. Our science correspondent Thomas Moore explains.
Buzz is erecting the solar wind experiment now.
When astronauts first landed on the moon, it looked desert dry. But the United States and China are now jostling in a space race back to the surface. And the prize is water. So why go so far and spend so much to look for something the Earth is hardly short of? Historically, moon missions have been dominated by the United States and the Soviet Union, between them landing successfully 19 times during the Cold War. There's Apollo 11, the first human landing. And since then, China, India and Japan have also made it to the surface. But so far, only 2 spacecraft have touched down at the South Pole. But NASA hopes to land astronauts there in 2028 and China is aiming for 2030. Both want to build moon bases. It is a perilous place to land. The region is covered in deep craters, permanently in shadow. Some spacecraft have crashed, but it's now seen as worth the risk because temperatures are as low as -230 degrees, easily cold enough to lock up water molecules as ice. NASA believes there could be hundreds of billions of gallons of water, and finding it would be huge. It would provide astronauts with crucial hydration, making long-term missions more viable. And splitting water molecules would also provide oxygen to breathe and the ingredients for rocket fuel. Matt Barbet is involved in the Prospect mission to land a spacecraft and search for water ahead of astronauts arriving. Finding it would be a game-changer for a moon base.
It costs around £500,000 to take a small bottle of water to the moon that weighs half a kilogram. I think that water on the moon can underpin the science, the exploration, the economics of making space exploration sustainable.
In 2009, we learned that the moon contains millions of tons of water ice.
The United States and China want to build a long-term strategic presence on the moon. It could lead to mineral mining, powerful deep space telescopes, or scientific studies of the moon and Earth's origins. And it all starts with finding water. Thomas Moore, Sky News.
Space journalist Kate Arkless-Gray is still with me. And let's focus for a moment, Kate, on the space race. On one hand, they're looking back at the Earth and saying, you all look beautiful, you're all special. It looks pretty harmonious. But actually, on the surface of the moon, we just saw there in Thomas's map, the Americans have been there, the Russians, Chinese, Indians, and they all have ambitions to what? To colonize it, to get to that water if it's on the South Pole?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of getting to that water and finding ways to use it is incredibly important. It does seem rather a shame that there are the 2 camps. There's the Artemis Accords, the NASA kind of rules of how to conduct yourselves on the lunar surface and doing lunar science. And there are many signatories around the world. But then you've got the International Lunar Research Station, which is a joint Chinese and Russian initiative, and they want to also build a research station on the moon. You know what I was thinking the other day? Wouldn't it be just so lovely if we could come all together and have what they had back in the 70s, the Apollo-Soyuz mission. So where these 2 former enemies came together and actually they both sent up a spacecraft with the crew. They joined and actually shook hands in space. And I just thought what a wonderful moment that would be if we could repeat that, but perhaps with America and China. I think that is some way off. NASA is not allowed legally to work with China at all, although the European Space Agency has been working on some missions with them. So maybe there is hope in the future that we could get along off the planet better than we do on the planet.
Yeah, do we really want to export our animosities into space? I think that's the thing that concerns a lot of people. Nevertheless, you mentioned previous collaboration. The International Space Station, there continues to be collaboration there, and international astronauts aboard it from different places. Let's bring it back to the here and now, because tomorrow is kind of a big day, because they're due to then go behind the far side of the moon, cue Pink Floyd.
Yes, I mean, we've already heard, I think it was Christina saying that they were starting to see parts of the far side. And I thought it was really interesting what she was saying. You know, they were looking at the moon and just something didn't feel quite right. It wasn't the moon that they know. You know, for all of their lifetimes, they've looked up at the moon and seen just the very same side of it. And suddenly they're seeing a different element of it. And it was slightly odd for them. And I know that kind of feeling because when I first went to Australia and I looked up at the night sky and was like very confused. And then I suddenly realized, of course, I've changed hemispheres. So the stars that I was expecting were not where I wanted them to be. And it's upside down,
isn't it? That's the problem.
Yeah, everything feels slightly unnerving. So it really is like a whole new experience for them. And they're really excitedly taking photographs. I think it was Victor Glover was absolutely, in awe of what he was seeing through one of the camera lenses. I love the way that Mission Control said, "Copy Moonjoy."
Look, I'm being flippant, and of course, before anyone thinks I don't know, it's The Dark Side of the Moon is the Pink Floyd album, but we're calling it Far Side, aren't we? That's the technical term. Being serious, though, Kate, when it does get round the far side of the moon, do they lose then communications contact with Earth? Does that present more challenges?
Yes, being on the far side means basically that the moon is blocking the way for any signals to get back down to Earth. So that's why it's really hard to land anything on the far side. And so far, only China has managed to do that. In fact, they've done it twice and even brought samples back. With this mission, they are expecting a kind of what they call a loss of signal, LOS event, for probably around 40 to 45 minutes. So at that point, the Artemis astronauts will be truly alone on the far side of the moon. And yeah, the only humans they will see are each other.
Because we heard in the sort of first part of our special, Reed, who is the Apollo commander, talking about having a call with his kids and his family, like his dad's just at work, let's see how he's getting on. But a reminder just how far away they are from us, more than 200,000 miles already. And
it's actually, it is a good reminder that these are people. They are just normal people. They're exceptional people, but they are just, flesh and blood like the rest of us. And, that's something that you kind of forget. You almost think astronauts, they're like superheroes, they're invincible. Yeah. Or, I used to say that they're like Father Christmas. You know that they exist, but you're never going to meet them. But I have met some, and then I've watched them sit on top of rockets with all the rocket fuel about to launch. And suddenly you're like, oh my goodness, they are real people, and this is incredibly dangerous. So I cannot imagine how his two daughters were feeling. I mean, they lost their mother in 2020, and then they have to see their dad sitting on top of this rocket, flying with humans for the very first time. My goodness, the stress. But then they must be so proud of him now because, watching the crew up there, watching that joy, watching how much fun they're having and how well they're doing. I mean, they must be absolutely full of pride.
And these are four absolute professionals. I think that the three men on board have talked about Christina and her. She's been in space for almost a year in total, way more than the others. These are live shots we're showing you now, by the way, from Artemis as it heads into the big black darkness. They're four professional astronauts, exceptional human beings, but we've had others go into low orbit for a matter of minutes who then feel inclined to call themselves astronauts. I guess, Kate, what I'm getting at is this going to precipitate briefly more people, more civilians, if you like, going to space, maybe even going to the moon at some point?
I mean, I would absolutely love it if civilians could go to the moon because I would first on that list. Sadly, I think at the point that they offer that, I will not have the funds to do so. There has been an uptick in some interest in commercial missions, and most of those actually are what we call suborbital missions. So they don't get up and go around the Earth. They're just kind of going up, and then they have like a moment of weightlessness before they come back down to Earth. And there is a little bit of an argument as to at what point you become an astronaut. So there's an international boundary at 100 kilometers called the Kármán line. And that is what most people would say is the point where you become an astronaut. But because NASA has so many military people, their version is at 50 miles, which is slightly lower. And so they've had to change their sort of definition so that you become an astronaut at 50 miles, because it wouldn't be fair on the civilian astronauts they now have if their crewmates became astronauts just a few seconds before they did.
Or a taikonaut or a cosmonaut or whatever you want to call yourself. Kate, it's great to see you. Thank you so much. Big day tomorrow, of course, with Artemis and the Apollo capsule heading to the far side of the moon. Coming up after the break, we'll have all the latest after American forces rescue their downed fighter pilot inside Iran. Donald Trump posting about that. Sean will be here to take you through till 2 o'clock.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Big Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.